episode number 5 of the Nintendo Jump Podcast. We are a weekly discussion podcast created for Nintendo gamers by Nintendo gamers. It's the week of July 23rd. My name is Daryl, and today I'm once again joined by Sergio.
Hello, everybody.
And Kevin.
What's good, everybody?
How you guys doing? Number 5.
Pretty good. You know, I could think of a few things. The Fab Five from NCAA basketball, and I can't really think of a pun right now, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
What if I give you 5 minutes to think of one?
Oh, no. No.
Oh, no.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm just going to roll on. So, we got a couple fun topics planned for this show. So, later on in the show, we're actually going to talk about a couple games each that we want to make the jump to Nintendo Switch. But before we get to that, we're going to start out with a little bit of news on current events with Nintendo. A couple things have happened lately that have been kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to get into kind of a broader discussion. So what I'm talking about right now is just last week, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was actually updated. So more than a year actually after it was released, it was updated to add a brand new character, which is Link in the Breath of the Wild tunic, and his motorcycle from the DLC of that game, and new wheels. So that kind of got us thinking. So why at this point would they want to go back and update Mario Kart? What would they be trying to accomplish that? So what we're kind of leading into with that was, is this in some way tied to the eventual Nintendo Online service? Is there some sort of content update plan that they're going for? So we kind of wanted to get into the actual online service. And as it is now, as there's really not a whole lot of information out, although we have some that we can talk about. But we wanted to get into what we kind of predict from it, what we hope to see from it, and our general thoughts. So Sergio, you want to kick us off?
Sure. And you know, one thing about the Mario Kart update, they did mention that they also tweaked a couple of things, you know, to quote unquote enhance the gameplay experience, right? One thing that a friend of mine, Danny, and I noticed is that Mario Kart on the Switch, it doesn't always work when you're trying to play local multiplayer. You know, the more controllers that are connected, the more issues you could have, I guess, because it's Bluetooth connectivity and there's more wireless stuff going on. So we were hoping that they would update it at some point, and it seems like they did. Let me explain. So before the update, whenever we would play, for example, I was docked and he was on handheld mode, not even one during the first race, and we would get a connection error. If we were lucky, we would be able to play 2 courses, both of us handheld. Now, after the update, we tested it this past weekend, and we were able to play 2 matches, me docked and him in handheld, no problem. We did 2 more, both of us handheld, no problem. So it sounds like it might have been updated, and that's really nice. I know a couple of people that do Switch meetups. They also try to play Mario Kart, just regular local. No, you know, not everyone connected to the internet and playing that way, and they had trouble. So that's what they had to do. They had to all go online, and you know, it's not the same experience. And now it seems like it might have been updated, and it's a little strange of Nintendo not to specify if that's the case. But either way, you know, we'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like a quiet update, and I can definitely speak on behalf of your experience, Sergio, especially playing with you guys. Having that sort of, you know, the ideal experience of playing local multiplayer, even without the internet, just going with wireless, and it would just have that ridiculous connection error, and then, you know, either one of us gets it or multiple people get it, and it's just such a bummer because, excuse me. So, you know, this is what Mario Kart is meant to be played. You know, being able to play in the same room, you know, alongside each other with, you know, bunch of laughs and friendly banter, and you know, but I mean, it's awesome that, you know, they're able to fix the issue, hopefully, and I will definitely I should test it on my own Switch, and because yeah, it's, you know, it is one thing to play online, but and play with other people, but it's another. I think the best experience is to play locally and with your friends.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, that's actually a really fun way to play it. I've done a few meetups at work. There's a couple of us. Well, we've had a maximum actually of 4 switches. So 8 people playing battle mode at work and over lunch breaks, and that's been pretty fun. I actually I've never really seen errors, so that's the first I've heard of that.
Oh, cool.
So I kind of buried the lead getting into this discussion, but the question remains, and this is coming off of some of the developer comments that this game would continue being updated. Do we think that Mario Kart 8 is in some way part of the Nintendo Online service that's launching in September of this year? Do you guys expect some sort of bigger update, such as more courses, characters, anything like that, or is this just kind of an anomaly on its own?
I think there's gonna. I feel like there could be some updates, like with more courses. Not sure about the characters, maybe in little spurts, but I think also, I think there's one thing that I can think of where maybe you could use the Nintendo Switch online app and be able to communicate with each other over voice chat. I think that's something that, because as you all know, there's only one particular game that's available on the Nintendo Switch app, which and that's Splatoon 2. So
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, and I would think, well, how come other games are not using this app? And I would think it's because what's going on, and I could be totally wrong here, but I think that the publishers decided to hold off on being able to implement other games for now. And once the Nintendo Switch Online capability is up and running and people are paying for the service, which $20 a year, by the way, is pretty decent compared to the other platform services. That being said, I think that they're going to hold off and then see how Nintendo Switch Online fares with the online service, and then be able to integrate with games like ARMS and hopefully Mario Kart. And also, there is one thing that I just thought of right now. There is a mobile app called Mario Kart Tour, I believe. And I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know when that's coming out, but I feel like there is going to be some sort of connection between that and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as like an exclusive for people who do have the Switch, who do have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So hopefully that's in the works. And yeah, it'll be exciting because, when you talk about multiplayer games, you talk about what right now, Rocket League, Fortnite, Mario Tennis Aces, but Mario Kart has been, well, before the updates that you guys have talked about, it has been relatively quiet. So I think that this is a good time for them to jump back into the news and see how it goes. So that's just my thoughts about it.
Cool. And I definitely agree. Very good points there about Mario Kart Tour and about Mario Kart not being in the online service app that, like I said, currently only Splatoon 2 is. I think if Nintendo were to add more online functionality to Mario Kart, it would have to be a lot of it because, they always have the option of doing Mario Kart 9, and we don't know if that's going to be on the Switch or not. So if that's not the case, then I would imagine they would add a lot of online features, only because there's a lot of people that already played Mario Kart 8 a lot online. Either if you're looking as far back as on the Wii U and also on the Switch for over a year now. Or, yes, over a year. So if they add a lot of content, it's going to entice people that either haven't played it or even the people that have played a lot of it already. You give them new content and you make it online only so that you can promote your online service as well. So aside from cool features like the app, for example, in Splatoon 2, it shows you the details of every match. Like the last 50 matches that you had, it shows you a lot of detail about them.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
can do the same thing for Mario Kart. It could show you the rankings, your total race, your scores, how many times you ended first, second, third, etc. Like a lot of cool records like that, and also maybe different new modes that are online only.
Yeah, and to add to that, I really super duper hope that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe can have a better ranking system, because as you guys know, it's it's just depending on how many points you have. And yeah, there's ways to lose points, to gain points depending on your position in each online race. But it's really hard to determine and quantify, or excuse me, calculate, how you stack up against other people. So hopefully they can implement like a rating system that the Nintendo Switch Online app can show, like, oh, hey, you're at like 2,500 points, and you're and this is where you are in the world, this is where you are in the states and all that. So that would be really awesome if they can implement that feature, because that will give a really good reason to use the app, keep up with it, and again, hopefully use some sort of voice chat. Right? So anyway, yep.
Sure. Yeah, and I actually really like the app and what they do with Splatoon on it. Not necessarily the voice chat, that does get a little clunky as people expected, right? But the rest of the app is actually really cool, the way they do it. Yeah, you mentioned the pricing on it. So a single plan of the online service is $19.99 for a year, which is roughly a third of the cost of either of the other two major consoles, which is honestly, it's not that bad.
Right.
Yeah.
The issue that I have with that is, so as of September, they're just going to say, okay, now you pay us for this. And
right.
So in terms of classic Nintendo, I could definitely see them just do that. Just, okay, here's the service, now you pay for it. There you go. Enjoy. Have fun. But in the newer version of Nintendo, pretty much since they announced and then released the Switch, they've been a little bit different in the way they handled things.
Yes.
I'm kind of curious if they're going to put together kind of an immediate bang for your buck type deal, which, the easy way that they could do that is to go back to the games that they already have that are healthy on the platform, update those with, various content, So Mario Kart has a ton of players every day still. Splatoon has a ton of players every day still. ARMS, sure. But you could do these little packs and really, really drive the value story on this thing, which makes it actually pretty interesting, because when they said when they announced it was going to release in September, the online service, I kind of expected Smash Brothers to come day and date with that. And it did not. So it's not going to. It's going to be 3 months later. So I feel like there's something, and we'll get into. I know there's NES games. We'll get into those in a second. The one point specifically that makes me kind of target Mario Kart, despite the recent updates of adding Labo and then adding another character kind of out of the blue, is. So with this game, they they went back to classic battle mode, right? And that was kind of the big sell of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe over Mario Kart 8 even, was this fully realized battle mode, which just so happens does not include what's generally considered the best battle mode stage. I never ever thought that Block Fort was unintentionally left off. I thought that they were saving Block Fort for something, because everybody loves that stage, right?
Right.
Yes.
That is the classic battle mode stage, and it's not in the game currently. So to me, I've expected DLC or something for this game for pretty much since release, simply because one stage is missing.
Right.
Okay. So with that, we can kind of move on from Mario Kart and actually talk about the other things that we actually know, and have some speculations on for the rest of the online service. So one of the things we know is that it is going to launch with 20 NES games that have been kind of reworked for online multiplayer. Now, the interesting thing about this is we only know 10 of them currently, and we can actually share the list here. But of those 10, 6 of them have continuous, simultaneous multiplayer. 4 of them are mostly single-player games. So the way they've done this is apparently there's a digital controller handoff where you and another person can be playing this game and then hand the controller back and forth across the internet, which sounds crazy to me.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on what we know about that so far?
I like the feature a lot, and I'm really looking forward to it. Like you are alluding to, it would be nice to know if the games that do have multiplayer, if we're gonna be able to play them online, basically as multiplayer, not just the passing the controller. Which, mind you, it's a great feature. I love the way it sounds. I know they're also gonna be doing some sort of, basically, you're playing for the world to see. You're gonna be like streaming your gameplay, and I guess that's when one of your friends could say, "Oh, let me take over for a bit," and you pass it over. But yeah, it would be also nice to know, yes, you're gonna be able to play these games multiplayer. I hope that's the case, especially if eventually they do add other consoles that are more that have games that are more multiplayer focused. It would be nice to have online play, like actual online play added to those games. But even as is, just the controller and the streaming, that's awesome. I cannot wait.
Yeah, for the multiplayer aspect of it, being able to include the online multiplayer into these old games, it's a little tricky, especially on the development side. And I'm actually curious to see how they've implemented it, because I mean, you're basically taking legacy code and from old games and being able to adapt it to modern times. So I think,
Yeah.
I mean, if it really depends on execution. The idea is great, but the execution has to be just as good. It could easily mess up. Hopefully, it doesn't. But yeah, I have high hopes for it. And I mean, the idea of playing old games with other people on an online multiplayer platform in the new environment, I think it's a wonderful idea, and hopefully they can execute it pretty well. So that's my thoughts on it. It really depends on execution. That is the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm extremely curious to see if we actually get games on newer systems on there. So, if you move forward, there's a lot of Super Nintendo games I would love to play with people online. If you even go forward from there, if you start talking Nintendo 64 games, that's when multiplayer got crazy. I mean, we just talked about Block 4, right? So that's Mario Kart 64 was where that originated. And also, you're thinking Super Smash Bros. 64, that kind of thing. If they start looking that way, I'll kind of lose my mind a little bit. Right now, they've told us NES games, so I don't know how optimistic I am that they're actually going to bring some newer consoles to it. But hey, we'll find out. And I'm along for the ride. I gotta say, like, the games list right now is not the most exciting for me. It's so I'm just gonna read them. It's all NES games. It's NES Soccer, Tennis, Donkey Kong, the original arcade game, Mario Brothers arcade game, Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 3, Balloon Fight, Ice Climber, Dr. Mario, and The Legend of Zelda. So of those, a lot of those are kind of, to me, they're kind of novelty. I'll play them a few times with people and then probably shelf them and never really go back. I think that's okay. I didn't see that list and go, ooh,
Right.
Well, I think it depends on the audience too, because for us, we used to play those kind of games when we were really young. But for families who have kids who are probably 5, 6 years old or 7, and who can be able to experience these sort of these older games, I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Be able to play, be able to say, hey, check this out. These are the games I used to play when I was a lot younger, when I was your age, and having that kind of moment together. I think that's I would think that is one of the main target audiences. Families who have kids who can be able to play those old games on a newer platform, and instead of being able to get the NES Classic, which is obviously a really good option, but I think the flexibility and the convenience of having certain NES games right on the Switch is very good for families with kids. So
yeah, that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
So what else are you guys like? What are you hoping to see from this service? I mean, I assume none of us is really hoping for, okay, you get the same thing, but it's $20 now. So what are some things that you think would really make this a success in your minds?
One thing I feel that can be a really good thing is to introduce maybe an indie game that could be for free per month. And, and I say that because a lot of the indie games, the price point is relatively low compared to the AAA games that are worth $60. I think if you were to say, hey, like, here's Hollow Knight for free 1 month, and then the next month you can get, like Overcooked 1. I think that would be really awesome, and it's a good way to go about it because it was kind of like the PlayStation Plus or the Xbox Live model where they're able to, have certain games for free. A lot of them being more, games between indie and AAA. And so I think that with Nintendo, if they can have like one indie game per month for free, I think that would be fantastic, and it would be worth the $20 a year. So that's what I'm hoping for. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think the model's already there, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which probably means that Nintendo is not at all going to follow it, but
yeah.
Right.
what I could actually see them doing and what they've kind of promised to do is bring these older games on kind of a regular clip. I could see them doing that pretty easily and try to replace the virtual console a little bit with these online added functionality games, which they could make that extremely cool. They really could.
It would be nice to have F-Zero. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Oh my!
I'm just, it's not that much to ask. I know, but just having it on the Switch.
Yeah. It's at this point it's deserved. There should be a new F-Zero something somewhere somehow.
Well, I mean, okay, I'm gonna retract back. I mean, have the old F-Zero game out. I mean, even the SNES version, I would love to play on the Switch again. So,
right.
But a new one, great. I mean, I'm all for it.
So what about you, Sergio? What are you hoping for?
Well, I'm hoping for more functionality to the app. The cell phone app that Nintendo, introduced. Nobody liked it. Nobody likes it, and Nintendo doesn't care, so they're gonna keep using it, and I'm hoping that they refine it. I do have a couple of ideas, things they could add. For example, in typical Nintendo fashion, they could do something really wacky. For when you're using voice chat, they could do voice filters like autotune or like helium or something. That seems like a typical Nintendo thing they do. They kind of did that with the DSi when they first introduced that. So I want to see little things like that. I also want to make it really easy for me to add friends to my Switch list. Let's say me and Kevin are playing online and we're friends already, and then Kevin says, "Oh, let me add this other friend of mine to our matches," right? And then we're doing voice chat. I like the guy or the girl, and I say, "You know what? Let me add them to my Switch friend list," and allow me to do that right then and there without having to input any friend codes. I mean, because I'm already talking to the person, that would be a quick and easy way to build up your friends list. And if they do that through the app, I think that would be a great functionality. And another thing they could do is allow you to set up like a schedule of games that you're looking to play. For example, you would say, well, I'm free tonight to play online. I want to play Splatoon 2 and Mario Kart. And you tag those two games. And then when people are looking who to play with, they see that you may not be online at the moment, but you're available tonight to play those two games. And those are the two that you're looking forward to. So they could plan ahead and contact you if you want to play those. Little things like that. I want to see a lot of features in the app since we're going to be kind of forced to use it. I want them to make it really good.
No, I completely agree with that. I'd actually love to see a new like party system, right? Or even just an easy way to send messages to people in my friends list. Because right now, you can go look at the people you've played with and you can add them as friends, and then they can just live on your friends list and you can never play together because there's no physical way to talk to them at all. So it makes things a little difficult, and there's just not that much reason to add randoms to your friends list currently, and I'm kind of hoping that there is in the future, because from time to time you play with somebody online who's really funny or really good at a game or something. You want to play with them a little bit more, and there's just not a great way to do that.
Right.
I think also the general consensus, I think, is if we're going to pay for online, the online connection needs to be better than it currently is, because
absolutely,
yes,
errors and lag and speed and such. Do you guys actually expect that?
Well, man, that's a tough question. I'm just looking back at my experience with PlayStation when I had the PS3 and it was like free online play. And there was one situation where back in spring 2011, PS Plus was hacked. There was a DDoS, and it was out for a month. And then after that fiasco was solved and fixed up, they, Sony offered everybody who was affected, a free game, out, like a choice out of the four, and it was really nice. And it was cool and all, but then that 1 month was pretty tough, and there were obviously a lot of people who were very sad about that. And I just hope that Nintendo has a strong online infrastructure that can handle those situations, because there's, and you guys hear news all the time about how certain people in the world can hack the Nintendo Switch and all that. So I'm very, very, it's kind of, I'm looking at it more realistically. Hopefully they can handle it, because with the online infrastructure, you have to make sure that all the little things are solid, and because having a DDoS attack hit you is really bad, and it can also lose the confidence of a lot of fans from Nintendo. And how there are a lot of Nintendo fans who can be very, very sensitive about these sort of things, and it's important that they handle this situation with everyone, making sure that everyone's well aware, and just keeping active. So that's probably my biggest concern is that it could be hacked. And seeing that you're paying for it too, it's like, okay, well, I'm paying for this. It's like, what the heck, So
yeah, famously, one guy hacked Splatoon to kind of prove a point,
right?
And all he did was adjust the numbers so that he showed up as the top 4 entries in the rankings, and changed his name, or changed the names that are showing there to "please add anti-cheat" on going down, right? Exactly. And then Nintendo banned him. So that was
but
problem solved.
And it's kind of funny, but to me, it's just like, I think a more constructive way to go about it is like, okay, we ban you, but we want to ask you, how did you hack us? And
right.
I mean, because that's what I would do. It's like, holy shoot, man! Like, you hacked us. We need to know how and why, because that is a way to, eliminate that from happening again. I mean, that's how that's how you get better. I mean, that's how you improve your service, because those people, certain people like that, they do it because they care. I mean, well, obviously it's hard to tell, but maybe they're doing it for fun. But I mean, when that happens, it's like, whoa, hold up. We got a problem. We got to talk to this person and figure out how they hack us and stuff. And I mean, hopefully both sides can come to an agreement to discuss about it. But I mean, yeah, I guess banning them is an easy way.
Yeah. So I mean, specifically, I think it's a good thing to want better service. I think that the service right now is it's lesser than you find on the other consoles. I think it's still passable, to be honest. I have lag issues from time to time, but it's not. I don't have any extremely glaring issues. The one thing I want to point out, so a lot of people look at, hey, we need online servers for Mario Tennis.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't actually help anything. Like, so right now it's set up as a peer-to-peer. If you add an online server, it's just a third connection point, right? If either person's connection is bad, that's going to cause a problem. And the Switch is really the first console that it's actually easy to take to, I don't know, McDonald's and set up on their Wi-Fi. So, I don't know, you're taking a system that has, it has an okay connection, but you're putting it on extremely dubious Wi-Fi networks, and then you're having people play each other. You're gonna have some issues. I don't really see a real big solution for that just on the client side, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's pretty realistic. And that also, there's a notion of expectation, and as long as people have realistic expectations, noting that, hey, there might be some lag every now and then, but if it's solid, if it doesn't get attacked, if it doesn't get attacked strongly from hackers, I think it should be okay.
Yeah, I'd love to see like dedicated servers for Splatoon and the other multiplayer games, the ones that actually have enough players to make a difference.
Right.
So I'd really like to see that. And we have seen Nintendo improve their netcode. So if you think back to the demo that was released for Mario Tennis, that was actually pretty rough on lag,
Yes.
and it has definitely been improved. I'm not going to say fixed, but it has been improved in the
Right.
recent.
So I'm gonna say something crazy, and
Uh-oh.
this is just my thing. I know probably nobody's gonna agree with me, but I was actually hoping that the pricing was higher
Well, ooh.
because because it would mean less people would pay for it, and only the more serious online gamers would pay for it. I'm thinking in a way, if there's less people paying for it, it's gonna be better. There's gonna be less people playing overall, so less lag, less connection issues. As it is, I guess Nintendo is showing you, they care. They want to keep the price down. They want pretty much everyone who is using online to keep using it. It's just you just have to pay a little bit now, either every month, every 3 months, or every year. And what I'm thinking is it might not improve as much in terms of connection. It's not that I have a problem with it. I just wanted, the very best.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not going to improve that, which they don't necessarily have to, then what I expect and what I think we'll see is more modes, less limits. More features, more ways to stay connected online, and make it easier. Also, make it faster.
Actually, that's a good point you made, and it's not that crazy, to be honest, because when you're putting a bit more money into an investment like Nintendo Switch Online, say, what if it were $40 a year? Then that money will go to maintaining servers, maintaining the online service. So, I mean, it's actually a pretty valid point because, with the $20 price point, the message is, oh, hey, here we go. Here's some online service. It's basic. It's not as it's not up there with PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live yet. But here's an introduction. We're gonna test it out, see how people gauge it, and go from there. I think that's the intention, because when you're offering $20 a year, we should not expect the very best. But if you're gonna, as you say, bump up the price a bit higher, if you're gonna pay $40, $50 a year, you're gonna expect a solid service for sure. Like, the expectations are gonna be higher. So
Yeah, as is, I'm not expecting a whole lot from this. What I'm hoping for, and what would actually make me happy, is a few different things. Like, they could if they update a bunch of older games like Mario Kart or Splatoon and things, to make the value story that way, I'm going to be happy. If they throw a lot of games on the service with online play, I'm going to be happy. If they added partying outside of games, so you can get together with friends and then go play multiple games with each other, that would make me extremely happy. So
awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to see something like that. But the flip side of Sergio's argument, which is extremely valid, is if I'm throwing $20, I'm also going to be happy with less.
Right. There's something that I want to talk about right now about this, is that, and I've been seeing some comments about it on Facebook, primarily in the Nintendo Switch group, and there have been people saying, guess we're gonna pay $20 for online, like, with having a very very pessimistic attitude about it. And I think that's a very interesting thing to note, because you have people who are not used to having the pay for online model. So Nintendo's walking on eggshells here in trying to balance and making sure that everyone's happy, because for those who have never paid for online ever, say for PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live, they would think, what? You have to pay? What? Why? So and it is valid for them to think that way. So it's a big balancing act for Nintendo to do. So
yeah, at least they did it the right way. I mean, they were extremely upfront about it.
Right.
Like they mentioned this at the big January reveal, right? So they even mentioned pricing at the time, and they've held to that pricing. So I'm not all that angry with them about it. Actually, I'm not angry at all. It's something that they're moving towards what the other consoles are already doing in a cheaper way. So I'm not I'm not too upset about it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
how many hours have we enjoyed Splatoon 2 and
Yeah.
Rocket League and many other online games already,
Mhm.
for basically for free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's awesome. Yeah, I just want to make that point because just to accommodate and just try to bring into the fold of people who may be a little disappointed, even though Nintendo's up front. But yeah, I mean, I think Nintendo's doing a good job with it, and I'm just crossing my fingers and my toes, hopefully for the best. So,
All right. Any final comments on that, or you guys ready to move on?
ready to go?
All right.
Yeah, ready to move on.
All right. So we're gonna jump into games that we think should make the jump to Nintendo Switch. So
Yeah.
this is pretty open as far as our interpretation of what games we want to be on there, as evidenced by the fact that Kevin actually has a game that I have not heard of before. So I'm gonna throw it over to him to start. Kevin, why don't you tell us about it?
Here we go. All right, I'm ready to go, and thanks for that. So the game that Daryl has alluded to is called Donut County. Now, what kind of game is it? It is a physics adventure game where you control a pothole in the ground, and basically,
Sold.
it's a
How much?
it's a real game. It's not out yet. Shout out to Ben Esposito for developing the game. And just to note, very importantly, I did demo the game at PSX, which is a PlayStation sort of E3 event, but only for PlayStation.
Boo.
Oh no. Okay. You know what? Okay.
Hey, we're not the PlayStation Jump podcast, okay?
I know, but I know, Daryl, but I gotta speak facts. I gotta speak the truth. I did participate in going to that event, and it is related to the game I'm talking about. So I'll try not to mention it too much, but this is very important. Anyway, so at the non-Nintendo events, I played this game called Donut County, and basically you're a pothole, and you are trying to swallow things. And every time you swallow things like a chair or a table or a factory, the hole gets bigger. And it's actually a puzzle game at the same time because when you swallow stuff, maybe like you swallow like a fire pit or I don't know, or a gallon of gas or something, or sorry, gallon of fuel. Certain things can come out of the hole that can help you solve puzzles, which is pretty awesome. Now you're probably thinking, well, Kevin, that's awesome, but is there a story? Yes, there is a story, a very short one.
What?
Yes, there is. I'll tell you right now, you play as a raccoon named BK, not Burger King. Shout out to Burger King, but it's BK. He's basically a new hire at a startup that uses remote-controlled holes to steal people's trash, along with everything else. So trash, tables, new furniture, new appliances, whatever. And there was one day where he falls into the hole himself, and he must answer to his best friend, Mira, and all the other residents of Dillon County who are pretty much stuck almost 1,000 feet below the ground. How do we solve the problem? It's what the pothole. I mean, what do we do? What do we do? So, so yeah, basically the game is a puzzle, physics, adventure game where you just swallow stuff. And, the idea sounded pretty weird at first, but when I gave it a go, I was like, wow, it's actually pretty fun, pretty relaxing, and you have the music in the background, and it's like, man, I'm swallowing stuff like, good up. I mean, that's not the actual sound, that's just what I think in my head, but anyway, so it's really fun, and, well, I got a free shirt from it. I have it 5 feet away from me, actually. I'm not wearing it right now, but, well, actually, I did earlier, but anyway, so beside the point, it is a fun game. It is coming out in 2018. I don't know what day. It's coming out for the PS4, but I would love to have it on the Switch because I think it would be a really fun time, with your friends, by yourself, and, just following the story of BK trying to get out of the hole and, figuring out how to get back to the surface. So that's the game.
Dude, in just the description that you gave already, you already sold me on it like 5 times, man. Episode 5, you sold me 5 times.
Yo, there you go.
There we go.
There we
Also,
go.
I just want to point out that every time you mention that something's 5 feet away from you, I have to think about everything that might be 5
Yes.
feet away from you. So you just got a pile of stuff. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
well, I mean, you have to think about it within 5 feet radius. There's my bed and there's a shirt that has a raccoon with a donut, which, by the way, is a really awesome shirt. I love it a lot. And also my old Nintendo games like the NES. I actually still have my first NES game that I've ever played in my life, the Super Mario Brothers 1/Duck Hunt dual cartridge.
Oh yes,
Mhm.
same here.
Right. So anyway, that is the first game I want to talk about, Donut County.
That sounds utterly fascinating.
I
I can't even picture it. I need to go watch some videos. That sounds incredible, actually.
I'm gonna send you guys some videos later, so you guys will be good to go. And
Yep.
and just it's awesome.
All right, so Sergio, what do you have?
So one of my favorite video game series. I mean, you wouldn't know it nowadays because it's dead, which is kind of ironic, actually.
Oh no!
It's a Trauma Center.
Ooh, yes.
So, you play as a doctor. Have either of you played a Trauma Center game?
I haven't actually. It's one of my biggest misses so far.
I
Ooh,
have
yes, it
a
is.
long while back. I only played the first one for about a few hours, but it was pretty fun.
Cool,
Mhm.
cool. Yeah, I mean it's awesome, and there's basically 4 games in the series, and the later on it got there's 2 on the DS, 1 on the Wii, and the 2 on the Wii basically, and there's a couple of remakes, but basically there's 4 games, and the later on in the series it gets, the more features they add, and the more awesome the games get. I think not only is it time to bring back the series, which has been dead for almost 8 years.
Mhm.
But being on the Switch and all the different control options that it has and the mechanics, it would be awesome. You could use HD Rumble. I'm sure they could do something cool with that. You could also use the camera on the Ray Joy-Con to play a tool in one of the operations.
Mm.
I was even thinking, I don't know if they would do this because some people might drop the Switch and break it or something, but
Oh
it
no!
would be really cool if you're playing docked and you're doing the operation, and then all of a sudden you had to take out the switch of the dock and start using the touchscreen, like
Oh.
to mimic the chaos that goes in an emergency room, something cool like that.
Mm.
Even if they don't do that, I think just by bringing the series back and giving it a good story and bringing all the features that it has built up and implementing all the crazy ways that you can play Switch games on, I think it would be awesome, and I really hope someday it happens.
So would you prefer? I know they've done touch controls and they've done motion controls, and the Switch may be the first console that can do both. Which one would you actually hope to
Right.
see there?
I would like to see motion. I think overall there's a little more versatility there, and
Mhm.
you have. I mean, it's not. It's very precise still. So, I think they could do better with motion controls.
No, that's cool. I know the series has a lot of love behind it. I've watched a little bit on it. It's always crazy.
Yeah, I remember the time I played it. It can get pretty stressful too when you're trying to fix up the patient and all that. So it gets pretty intense. So I think with the touch controls, it would definitely add another dimension. And yeah, Nintendo, if you're listening, Trauma Center.
Yes, please. Anyone willing to bring it back? Yeah.
I would definitely try it out. By the time I saw it on Wii, I was already kind of moving past Wii, so just kind of missed it. Okay, so I'm gonna jump in. My first game is actually The Legend of Zelda: Four Swords Adventures, which was previously on GameCube. Now I'm not extremely tied into that particular game. I want something in that series to come back.
Mhm.
Yes.
The reason for that is that it's never been all that easy to play those games. So there was a Game Boy Advance release that you had to have friends with Game Boy Advances and copies of the game and link cables. Link cables. Then there was the GameCube version, which you could play single player, or to play multiplayer, you actually had to have Game Boy Advances and different link cables, which
Yes.
I think about 2 people had, and they were both me. And then, so I know Triforce Heroes came out, and actually I really liked that game. to be honest. I didn't like the feel of it as much as Four Swords, but I'd be happy with any of the multiplayer top-down Zelda games at this point. But even that, it was Wi-Fi connection on 3DS, which was also extremely spotty from time to time. So, like, I don't think that they've made it so it's actually really easy to play in the multiplayer setting, even though it's an utterly fantastic concept. Like, it's really, really fun. All three of those games is really, they're all really good. It's just not been easy to play. So the most number of players I ever played Four Swords Adventures on GameCube was 2. Just because, you know, finding people with Game Boy Advances and getting all the link cables, that was a heck of an investment for middle school, high school me. So, you know, it just didn't happen. But I loved those games a lot. Did either of you guys ever play them?
Yeah. I actually played, I played all of it on my own, but I also played a lot of it with my best friend Danny. And you mentioned that you have 2 cables. I actually have 2 of those cables, and guess what? They happen to be 5 feet away from me.
Whoa!
Whoa! What a coincidence!
Yeah. No, but dude, it was totally awesome. The way you would play multiplayer, and sometimes you're helping each other, and sometimes when there's a lot of rupees out there, you want to grab as much as you can, and you don't care about your friend anymore.
Yeah, it struck the balance really well between cooperative and competitive in maybe the best way that I can remember any game doing.
Yeah, and personally for me, I played it a bit in high school, usually after school, after we're done with class, and I unfortunately did not have the link cables, but my friends did, and we would play. We actually had anywhere from 2 to 4 players, and it was a good time. I would play it every now and then, and yeah, I think it would be good for it to come back.
Yeah, and I think it was a hugely missed opportunity for the Wii U not to have a game like that. It made so much sense, and who knows, maybe. Well, I was gonna say maybe the Wii U would have succeeded, but I don't think that alone would have done it. It would have helped, it would have helped. And what's cool is that the Switch got another game that is similar to that as how you play with multiple systems, the Pac-Man Versus. Maybe that's a hint, maybe that's a hint that we're gonna get a Four Swords on the Switch.
Yep, Pac-Man Versus was one of 3 games that used the Game Boy Advance link cable. Pac-Man Versus, Zelda Four Swords, which, I played through the whole game with my best friend Andrew, who, shout outs to Andrew. And what I can remember is just using the items in really funny ways. Like, we couldn't figure out how to make this one jump, and eventually I had the boomerang, so I threw it across the gap, and he got on it, and it yanked him over. And it was one of those things that it didn't feel like it was actually designed in to do that, but the physics just kind of worked out. And
nice.
We got together fairly recently and remembered that moment and cracked up again. It was really funny.
Cool.
The other game that actually used the link cable would also be on my list, although I'm not going to talk about it very much because it'll come up on a future episode, I'm sure. But that would be Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, which I would love to see some form of that game in its original form come to the Switch.
Yes,
definitely.
I always wanted to play that game, and I have some questions, but I'll save them for when we talk about it more in depth.
Yeah, we will. It's definitely on a very high on my list.
Sounds good.
Nice.
All right, Kevin, what's your number 2?
Here we go, number 2. So this one is one of my favorite games of all time. It is a point-and-click adventure game called Day of the Tentacle. Have you guys played it before?
No, haven't heard of it.
No worries. So this is a game made by one of my favorite game designers of all time, Tim Schafer, who made Grim Fandango, Full Throttle, and it's just been awesome because so his team, which is Double Fine Studios. Shout out to Double Fine. I love you guys. Well, I do. I'll talk about it later. But anyway, so Double Fine remastered Day of the Tentacle for the PS4 and for PC. And basically, it is a point-and-click adventure game where you control 3 players in this sort of time travel mind messed up adventure game where you have to try to save the world from this purple tentacle that's taking over everything, and you can travel back in time to like the old like the late 1700s, around the time when the Declaration of Independence was being done, and even in the future. So past, present, future, you can travel back and forth, and you solve puzzles, and there's all these wacky puzzles and stuff, and depending on the objects you have, you can transport those back and forth between time zones, or excuse me, time, past, present, future, and it's actually a really fun game. And the music is awesome, and the art style is very unique. It's a bit cartoony, and I would definitely encourage you guys to play it. I think it's a good fit for the Switch. I know, we have Thimbleweed Park, which was made by Tim Schafer's boss, Ron Gilbert. Shout out to Ron Gilbert, awesome dude. And I've never met him, but I've met Tim Schafer. I've met Tim Schafer twice, and he is an awesome person. Anyway, so that being said, yeah, for anybody who's a big fan of point-and-click adventure games where you go from room to room and you click on the items and see how you can interact with them, and with the sort of the verbs like, oh, pick up this to do that, it's such a gem, and it would fit so well with the Switch. And they already announced that Grim Fandango, which you should play, is also being released for the Switch sometime later on. And yeah, I mean, Day of the Tentacle would just be a great addition. And yeah, Day of the Tentacle, boom, that's my pick.
It's funny how many genres I keep saying are like perfect for the Switch. And point and click adventures is just another one that it feels like a really good fit.
Yeah, and another thing too with this one, you can actually pretty much switch back and forth between the old graphics and the new remastered graphics, which is super awesome, just with a click of a button. Yeah, so it's really nice. So they call it classic mode and remaster mode, and you can also mix and match audio. So audio, graphics, user interface. So there's like different ways for you to play, whether you want to be transported back in the early 90s when this game came out and play in that sort of format, or you can play it in a more modern remaster format. So it's very versatile, and I think honestly, the old art has aged decently well, but if you want to use the new art, that's cool too. They both look fabulous. So highly recommended. That
sounds awesome.
Yeah, so
I like it when they do remasters like that, like add some new content, but it's the same content, just looks better, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's a really nice way to go about it, and hopefully it'll come on the Switch. I mean, I know a new F-Zero game is unrealistic, but this one is realistic. This one can actually happen.
Yeah, let it be known, Kevin's ultimate make the jump to Nintendo Switch would be some form of F-Zero if that wasn't obvious.
Oh, Nintendo, if you're listening, that's what I want. As a fan, as a gaming fan of both Nintendo and non-Nintendo platforms, that would be good. It'd be great. Anyway.
Nice. All right, Sergio, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Super Monkey Ball.
Yes!
Sadly, that's another series that is kind of dead. I don't know what happens with these companies that make these classic, awesome franchises and then just bury them forever. F-Zero.
Oh man, my heart.
So the last Super Monkey Ball game was on the Vita. Now that I think about it, maybe that's why it's dead.
Oh no,
the captain goes down with his ship, man.
Uh-oh.
No, but it was actually a good game, and so the Super Monkey Ball series, it's a puzzle game, really. You play as a bunch of monkeys inside plastic balls and you roll around. You're actually controlling the stage, so you move the stage around and that's how the monkeys roll around, and you're trying to get from point A to point B, and there's a lot of crazy stuff in the middle. So it's a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun mini games as well. But the Vita game added the ability for you to make your own levels. And I think it was a cool little attempt. The thing that happened is that you had to take a photograph of the thing that you wanted to make into a level. So it didn't always work. The game made it so that the stage could be beatable, but sometimes it was either too easy or too difficult. So it would be nice if they could add a custom level and you're able to actually move the pieces as you see fit. It would be really cool with the touchscreen. I think it's time to bring the series back, and it would be awesome on the Switch. Again, like Trauma Center, there's a lot of control options, so you could play with motion controls, you could play with just touch controls, that's fine, or with gyro. For sure, gyro has to be there. And Super Monkey Ball began on the GameCube, so it began on a Nintendo system. I think it's only fair to ask for it to come back. And I understand it's not a huge seller, but I also know that it wouldn't take a lot out of Sega to, in terms of financials, to make another Super Monkey Ball. Just throw it out there. And the Switch is very successful with families in minigame compilation kind of games. So why not, throw us a banana.
Somehow I didn't even consider the use of gyro controls. That'd be super exciting.
Oh yes, it would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Because it's basically a Labyrinth game, right? So it's basically Maze Madness, that kind of thing, just done in a cool way. Also, the mini games are fantastic. Like I spent hours playing the mini games in Monkey Ball 1 and 2 on GameCube.
Yeah, I mean, even if they just do those Monkey Ball 1 and 2, get those levels going, add a couple more that are Switch exclusive, and get all the minigames that you've done so far, because there's been so many and they're all so good. Do like a Super Monkey Ball Ultimate, eh? Why not?
Yeah,
I like that.
You mentioned how that it's such a niche game, but if it's released on the Switch, I think it can easily gain back popularity. I mean, a lot of the games that did not. Well, I don't want to say did not, but like for certain indie games, like I think Hollow Knight's an example where it excelled better than expected on this Nintendo Switch, and it's just amazing how these games can just having the Switch as a platform just makes it way more popular, way more awesome. So I think it'll be a welcome addition.
Yeah, I'd be there day one. Absolutely. I would absolutely
Nice.
be in on a Monkey Ball game.
Yeah.
It's time, Sega. Come on.
Let's go, Sega. Please.
Awesome pick.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll wrap up. So my number 2 game actually probably would have sounded impossible over a year ago, but it's maybe not so much now. So it's actually Rare Replay. So
True.
Rare Replay. Rare is actually owned by Microsoft now. So it was a console exclusive to the Xbox, specifically the Xbox One. But what it is it's a compilation of games developed and created by Rare, a company that was traditionally known as a Nintendo second party type developer. So this game has 30 games published or developed by Rare that most of them originated on Nintendo consoles, from the NES to the Super 64. I mean, it's amazing. If I'm reading through the list, I've got RC Pro Am, which is an NES game that we played, Snake Rattle and Roll, Solar Jetman, which my dad loved, Battletoads, Killer Instinct Gold Blast Core, which is a fantastic game. Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie. I mean, these are games that are associated with Nintendo consoles that are not currently on a Nintendo console.
Right.
So
Perfect Dark.
if they Perfect Dark.
Ooh.
I mean, you could this list is fantastic, right? So if you went down there and there's one main game missing, and that would be like Donkey Kong 64. They could do like rare replay plus new funky mode or something.
There you go.
But they could do something like that. And the reason I said it would have seemed impossible is the game is effectively owned by Microsoft at this point. So until recently, those consoles, they've kind of played nice, but they haven't really been super buddy. But now recently, especially with the Minecraft updates and a few other things that are going across, Nintendo and Microsoft are kind of aligning, which is very intriguing to see. And I don't know, I'm not saying that they're gonna create a joint venture console or anything like that. But I'm saying that the consoles have realized, well, hey, we can kind of team up with this crossplay initiative and the Better Together update, which had a really flashy commercial with Survive Together with the Switch and Xbox colors. It's cool. We're in a cool time that we haven't really seen before, so I could actually see this happening now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that kind of leads me to that is one of the extremely highly rumored newcomers for Smash. I mean, take this with a gigantic grain of salt, but how cool would it be if Banjo-Kazooie actually made it into Smash?
Right.
That would be amazing.
So yeah, that would be my
so
ultimate
classic. Yeah.
That would be my ultimate game to come to the console. I'd really like to play those games again.
Yeah, and it's nice that you mentioned how Microsoft and Nintendo, they're somewhat working together and having, especially with the cross-platform commonality. And yeah, if it's a win-win if they can get this to work and be able to release it on the Switch. I mean, it would be pretty awesome. And I guess I'm a little. It kind of stinks in a way because I don't know why Sony's not really taking advantage of having a potential commonality with Microsoft and Nintendo, specifically on cross-platform play. I know that's a little off tangent, but because, and this might be a third game I'm talking about. I'll keep it very brief, but I would think that having something like Uncharted, PlayStation exclusive, something like Uncharted, maybe the first 3 part of the series, like I think that would be great on the Switch. And I don't know. I know all those 3 companies have histories to get all together, back and forth, dating back from the 80s and 90s. But it's a good time to collab, and hopefully all 3 in some capacity can work together in some way to get these games across all platforms. Fortnite is a good example, Rocket League, and yeah, so.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, unfortunately, I think, not to be pessimistic, but at some point, this magical moment that we're in which Nintendo and Microsoft are buddy buddies, it's gonna end at some point.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it would be awesome if all 3 said, you know what, let's go for it. This is happening. Let's just go all out. Eventually, it's gonna die. So let's make the most of it now instead of just 2 of them, and then the other one is not being nice, and everyone is complaining. And,
Yeah.
it would be really awesome to have everything, and then we could all make our wildest dreams, and who knows, they might happen.
Yeah, and we're not asking for every single game to be released on all platforms. Just certain ones
Right.
that are maybe a couple of those really good exclusive games that can just work just as well on other platforms. I think that would be it'll be a really good. It would usher in a new age of gaming where companies like the big 3, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony, like they can have this sort of collaboration. And how cool would that be? Seriously.
Well, it's like, I mean, not to just keep going back to Smash, but when they added Cloud, that was a huge moment. Like,
That was huge.
Yes.
Yeah. Like
people who do not follow Smash Brothers were talking about that. And can you imagine what would happen if they show a reveal trailer and it actually is Banjo-Kazooie or somebody like that? Even Crash Bandicoot or somebody at this point would be a freaking gigantic drop, right? So
Actually, that's a good point. I totally forgot to mention that, how we have Crash Bandicoot, those games on the Switch. So I guess there is some good things from that point. But yeah, anyway, yeah.
And what gave me hope? I want to say maybe 1 or 2 years back was when Dragon Quest XI came out in Japan. It was the PlayStation 4 version and the 3DS came out, I believe, on both systems at the same time.
Yep.
And there was a version of the game / games. Basically, the best version of the game came with both.
Mm.
And that was pretty significant. You would buy a 3DS game and a PlayStation 4 games together. So it seemed to me at that time that it was a sign of a good relationship between Nintendo and Sony. And I was hoping that things would improve from them, but it seems like Sony didn't usher in what they could have, and now it's Nintendo and Microsoft. But it's never too late.
Yeah, it's never too late. And especially for my experience, like I played with Sony consoles for a long time, and it is kind of sad that the cross-platform thing hasn't worked out as well in terms of the commonality with Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo. But hopefully, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be optimistic about it, and I'm still gonna support just some of the games that come out from Sony. I mean, it's still a very exciting time, and we need all companies to turn out really good games, because I mean, it's just the nature of competition. Be able to come out with really good quality games back and forth, and obviously having the cross-platform exclusive, or excuse me, having more cross-platform games would be essential. So
yeah, I mean, they say a high tide raises all boats, and I think that's true.
Right.
In the gaming world too. When the gaming world is doing well, then pretty much all the companies are doing well,
Exactly.
unless somebody just dropped the ball. Wii U,
Yeah.
but we the Switch is actually hitting really well. Xbox is kind of hurting a little bit now, so for Nintendo and Xbox to kind of be teaming up almost in spite of PlayStation, that's kind of neat to see, and I'm interested to see if it goes farther than what it is, because Microsoft spent a lot of money to buy Minecraft to put it on Nintendo Switch. So, it's we're kind of in an interesting time. I don't know. I'm excited about some of the possibilities there. All right, so I think that's it. So with that, I think we're just gonna wrap the show up. So want to thank you all for listening. We are the Nintendo Jump Podcast. We will be having another episode. Just gonna guess it's number 6 next week. If you want to, please give us a like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app of choice, wherever you're listening to us. You can also catch us online. We have a Twitter. It's at Nintendo Jump. We are on Instagram as well, or you can send email feedback to nintendojumppodcast@gmail.com to tell us what's within 5 feet of you at the moment. I want to give a quick shout out to we've gotten our first iTunes reviews and some definite comments on Twitter and such that have been extremely helpful to us. So we definitely want to say keep it coming, guys. Give us some feedback. Tell us some things you'd like to hear us discuss. So we've actually kind of put together some ideas based on what people are telling us about the show. So please keep it coming. Really appreciate you guys listening, and until next time. Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.